Hi everyone, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. I'm Sally and this is my channel Secret Life of a Seamstress, where I talk all about sewing and making clothes. Thank you so much for joining me today and I hope you're all doing really well. Today's video is going to be all about how to choose the right fabric for your chosen sewing project. Fabric choice can really make or break a garment, and it can really make a difference as well to how your finished garment looks and feels on you and how you feel wearing it as well. And I have to say that getting a better understanding of different types of fabrics has probably been the most important thing, and the thing that's advanced my sewing journey the most. It's definitely given me such a better understanding of the kind of garments that I want to sew, and definitely the kind of garments that I want to wear day to day. So let's start with cotton then, shall we? So there are quite a lot of different types of cotton. Cotton generally is quite a structured fabric. It's a really good fabric to start with if you are a beginner because it behaves itself really well, it presses nicely, it's lovely to sew with, and you can get some really nice crisp lines with it. So there is 100% cotton, which is probably one of the most easier cottons to work with, but there are lots of cotton blend fabrics as well. For example, cotton lawn, cotton gauze, cotton sateen, seersucker, or even polycotton as well. Polycotton is another one that's pretty easy to work with as well, actually. It's got like a blend of polyester in it as well. So again, if you're looking for an easy fabric to work with, something that presses nicely and that will behave itself, polycotton is always a good option, and it's generally one of the sort of cheaper fabrics as well. So it's a good one to practice with if you are a beginner. So just as an example of a cotton garment that I've sewn, this is a pair of pyjamas, a pair of Caroline pyjamas, sewn from a 100% cotton fabric. So a little bit later on in this video, I'm going to be showing you the same pair of pyjamas sewn from a different fabric so that you can see the difference in how the garments have turned out. But in terms of this, you can see that the fabric is sort of very crisp, it's holding its shape very well, there's not a lot of drape there. If I move it around like this, you can see that it's still sort of holding its lines and holding its shape, and there's not a lot of swishing or movement at all. So if you are sewing something like this, it has a lot of sort of detail to it, it has a collar, a lovely crisp pocket here. Cotton is a really good fabric to use. As I say, it's very easy to work with and it presses really nicely. So if you are going to be sewing a collar, then it's a really good fabric to use to get those nice shapes. And if you're sewing a pointed collar, then it works really well for sort of getting nice crisp points as well. So along with the lighter cottons, there are lots of different sort of heavier cotton blends that you can buy. So a few examples would be cotton drill, cotton twill, cotton canvas. And these are more often used for bottoms like trousers and shorts, and anything that's going to need quite hard wearing fabric like a pair of structured trousers with a zip fly. And these fabrics are also used for jackets and sometimes coats as well. So here's an example of a cotton twill jacket that I sewed. This is an Ilford jacket by Friday Pattern Company, and this is a really quite a sturdy cotton twill. So it's great for outerwear, it really holds its shape. Again, you can see that there's not a lot of drape there. So the twill just means that there is like a diagonal line running across the grain of the fabric. A cotton twill like this is really good for outerwear, jackets and things. Again, it's a really lovely fabric to sew with, a little bit thicker than your 100% cotton. So that's just another example of a different type of cotton. So linen is another fabric that's really popular. So 100% linen is often quite crisp. It does crease quite easily as well. So you'll often find that linen can be blended with other types of fibres such as viscose or cotton, and that will often give it a little bit more softness and often a bit more drape as well. I made a nice pair of summer shorts from a viscose linen in the summertime, and because they are a linen blend, they're really nice and cool, and they've also got that sort of swishiness as well. So not quite as crisp as 100% linen, but they do still have that lovely sort of linen quality and texture in them as well. Linen is a great one for beginners too because it does behave itself and it's really good for pressing and working with. But if you do have viscose in your linen, you'll often find that it has got a bit more movement in it, so it can be a little bit more difficult to work with. There's also denim, of course. Denim is really popular. Denim can be bought in so many different ways. So you'll often see denim described by weight. So you can have denim with some stretch in it. So if you're making like a pair of jeans or something that you need to have a lot of movement in, then you'll often need to use like a stretch denim. It has just a little bit of elastane in it. But you can also buy rigid denims as well, and rigid denims just means that there isn't any stretch in them. They're completely kind of solid, so they're good for sort of jackets and outerwear and things like that, things that you aren't going to be moving in so much perhaps. Another fabric that's really popular, particularly in sort of ready-to-wear clothes, I would say, and high street clothes, is polyester. Polyester is a more drapey fabric. It's quite fluid and swishy, and it will give you that movement in a garment. People have different views on whether or not they want to use polyester. It is a man-made fibre, so it's not always something that people generally want to use or wear. It can often feel kind of static, and it can get quite sweaty as well. It's not particularly breathable, so it's not always the best fabric to use if you're going to be making like a summer garment or something like that. As fabric goes, it's one of the more sort of cheaper options if you are looking for a drapey fabric. It's really good for dresses, swishy tops, floaty trousers and things like that. So here's an example of something that I made in a polyester blend fabric. So this is a polyester viscose. So it's not 100% polyester. It does have some viscose in it as well. But you can hopefully see that it's got that kind of drape and movement in it. It hangs really nicely and it moves really well with you when you have it on. So it will kind of move with your body and move with you when you're walking. It won't necessarily keep its shape. It's one of those kind of hangy, swishy, movie fluid fabrics, if you will. So that's an example of a polyester make. So last in my little list, and probably my most favourite fabric, is viscose. So viscose is again another kind of swishy, drapey, more fluid fabric. It's great for sewing dresses or floaty tops or jumpsuits or anything really where you want the garment to hang nicely, to hang on your body and to move with you as you move. It can be that little bit more tricky to sew with because it does move around and it does have that kind of movement when you cut it. So you need to make sure that when you are cutting out, you really hold it in place. And likewise, when you're sewing it, you often need to use quite a lot of pins as well to keep everything in place. But in terms of how a garment feels on you, I think viscose is definitely my favourite. It just feels so lovely and comfy to wear. So there are other types of viscose that you can buy as well. There's standard 100% viscose. There's also viscose crepe, viscose twill, which has that sort of diagonal twill weave running through it, just gives it a bit more movement and sometimes a bit more sort of heaviness as well. And again, as I said earlier, viscose can be blended with other things as well. So for example, with linen, it just makes it that little bit more drapey. So here's an example of a couple of viscose makes. So these are Ogden camis by True Bias, a lovely kind of cami top that I wear often underneath cardigans and things like that. This one is a viscose challis, which is another type of viscose. It just has a lovely sort of softness and sheen to it. And then this one behind is a viscose crepe. So this one just has a slightly sort of bubbly texture to it. It's just slightly different and slightly lighter than the viscose challis behind. They both work really nicely as cami tops like this. They drape over my body when I'm wearing them and they kind of move fluidly as well. So they don't have that kind of structure that they would have had if I'd have made these camis from 100% cotton. They would really have kept their A-line shape and structure, whereas these ones, you can see where I'm holding them, they really move around and kind of float wherever I'm putting them. So let's just go back to my example with the pajamas. So back to my 100% cotton pajama top, you can see if I hold it like this that it's really keeping its shape. I have the exact same pajama top here. This is the same pattern as my cotton version, but this time it's made from a viscose. So you can see if I'm holding it like this, how much more movement there is here and how much more drape and fluidity there is in this fabric. So hopefully just by comparing these two tops, both sewn from the same pattern, you can see the difference in the two types of fabric. One is a lot more structured and will hold its shape, and one is more drapey and probably, in my opinion, more comfortable to wear. So hopefully that gives a little overview of probably the most common types of fabric that you're likely to come across when garment sewing. So you've chosen a pattern that you would like to sew. How do you then decide what fabric to use for that pattern? So when choosing your fabric, it's always wise, of course, to check the recommended fabric section on the back of your pattern envelope. So if you are sewing a PDF or you've downloaded your pattern instructions, you'll also have a recommended fabric section in there as well. So the recommended fabric section on your pattern piece will give you some recommended fabrics, and these are fabrics that will work really well with the sewing pattern that you have chosen to use. So as an example here, I've got one of my favourite dress patterns, which is the Maya Sotis dress by Deer and Doe. So this is a lovely summer dress, and it has some really nice features to it. It has a stand-up mandarin collar, some floaty fluted sleeves, and a lovely frill to the bottom of the skirt as well. So there's a few different sort of interesting details to this dress that you can mix and match. So the recommended fabrics for this particular pattern are chambray, which is a cotton blend, rayon twill, which is another kind of viscosy drapey fabric, batiste, double gauze, another cotton blend, lightweight cotton sateen, another cotton blend. There's a few drapey fabrics suggested, and there's also some more structured fabrics as well, like your chambray and cotton blends. So the fabrics listed are always fabrics that the designer knows will work really well for their dress design. So they'll be chosen based on things like whether or not the pattern needs any stretch to it, whether it needs drape, whether it needs structure to work, and in order that you'll end up with something that looks similar to what's shown on the front of the pattern envelope. The lists given aren't necessarily exhaustive. There's always that creative license there where you can pick and choose fabrics, but I think if you're going to do that, it's always good to have an understanding of how your chosen fabric is going to work with the pattern design. So even though these fabrics have been recommended based on how the garment is supposed to be worn, they won't necessarily give you any idea of how the garment is going to feel on you or how it's going to turn out, depending on which fabric you choose to go with. And in my opinion, that can make such a difference to your finished garment. So how do I decide what type of fabric to choose when deciding what fabric to buy for my dress or my project? So when I choose a fabric for my own sewing projects, I always think about how I want the garment to feel on me when I'm wearing it. So do I want it to drape and feel nice and floaty and swishy? Well, yes, if I'm making like a summer dress or a maxi dress or something like that, I might want that drape and that swishiness. But if I'm making, say, a jacket or a blazer or a shirt, then I might want something more structured so that I can show off those clean lines and sharp points. Again, going back to my dress pattern example, another thing that we need to consider is the features of the dress. So this particular dress here has a few different features to it. If you are going to choose a structured fabric like a cotton or a linen or a batiste, those fabrics are quite solid, they're quite stable. So if you're going to be sewing this dress with the fluted sleeves and the frill at the bottom, your frill and your fluted sleeves are going to have quite a lot of structure. So those frills on those sleeves are going to stand away from the body. They're not going to hang over the body. They're going to keep their own shape. So the silhouette of your dress is going to be quite A-line, quite structured, and it's going to look more like the pattern image here. So if I choose a drapey fabric for this same dress, what I'm going to have is still my nice frill, still my nice skirt, still my nice fluted sleeves, but they're going to be much more understated. So if you do decide to go for a drapey fabric like a rayon or a viscose or something like that, because those fabrics are more fluid, they're going to hang and they're going to drape over your body. So your frill and your fluted sleeves are not going to be so obvious as they are if you sew them from a cotton. The silhouette of the dress will not be so obvious because you've used a drapey fabric. It will be hanging closer to your body, so you're not going to have that sort of sticky out type frill or sticky out kind of fluted sleeves that you would if you made a cotton. I often tend to go for viscose over cottons because I like that more understated silhouette, and I find it a lot more comfortable to wear as well. That of course is just personal preference. I mean, if you're going to be making a statement blouse or a statement dress, then of course you need to go for something structured because you want to make the most of the features of the pattern. So another great example is actually what I'm wearing today, which is the Anthea blouse by Anna Allen. So I will just pop an image of the pattern in here. So as you can see from the pattern image, the main feature of this blouse is the big puffy sleeves. And on the pattern image and the image that's most widely used, I believe that this blouse is actually sewn from like a cotton or a linen or something. So you can see how much structure those sleeves have. They're very obvious. They stand away from the body, and they are a statement piece. Whereas with my blouse, I've actually used a viscose crepe. So you can see with my blouse that I have much more movement in my sleeves. They hang down, they hang over me. I don't have quite as much poof in the shoulders as the pattern image does. Of course, there are a couple of practical things to consider as well when you are choosing your fabric, such as does your fabric need to be opaque if you're making a pair of trousers or shorts? So there are a few practical things to consider as well when you're choosing your fabric. So let's just quickly go through some knit fabric examples as well. So there are quite a few different types of knit fabrics that you can use as well, but I'm going to list here again just a few of the most common fabrics that I come across mostly in my own dressmaking journey. Again, not an exhaustive list. There are lots of other knit fabrics around, but these are the ones that I find most commonly. First of all, there's cotton jersey. So like with the cotton woven fabric, cotton jersey can be much more structured than other types of jersey. If you are a beginner starting out with knit fabrics, again, cotton jersey can be a really good place to start because, like with woven cotton, it does hold its shape and structure quite well. And because it's got that cotton structure, it can kind of behave itself more when you're sewing with it too. Here's an example of a cotton jersey Agnes t-shirt that I've sewn up. This is the Agnes t-shirt by Tilly and the Buttons. So likewise, I'm going to show you this cotton jersey version of the Agnes tee, and then a bit later on I'll be showing you a more drapey version so that you can compare the difference. But yeah, cotton jersey is really lovely to work with. This t-shirt was nice and easy to sew up because there's just a bit more stability there than there is in more drapey jerseys. Cotton jersey is normally cotton blended with something like elastane or spandex or something like that, just to give it the stretch that it needs. And it's most often used, well, you can use it for loads of different things obviously, but it's really great for t-shirts and t-shirt dresses, and you can make some really nice sort of pajamas. And cotton jersey often comes in some really lovely prints, so it's great for children's wear as well. So another really common type of knit fabric would be viscose jersey. So viscose jersey has a little bit more drape than cotton jersey because it's viscose blended with elastane or something again. So it does have that drape to it. So just like when we were talking about woven fabrics, viscose jersey will be more fluid and it will hang over your body more and it will have that sort of swish and movement. So it can be used for things like t-shirts. Again, if you want a more close-fitting, drapey, swishy t-shirt. It's also often used for things like wrap dresses as well, and where you need that extra bit of clinginess or to shape over your body nicely. So here are my two examples again. So I have my cotton jersey Agnes t-shirt here. Quite a lot of structure to it. It doesn't move that much when I'm kind of wiggling it around like this. And then I have another Agnes t-shirt. This is exactly the same pattern. I have actually straighten out the side seams. So this one does have a little bit more room around the waistline than my previous one did. This is made from a viscose jersey, and hopefully you can see if I wobble it around how much sort of fluidity and movement there is in this one. So when I'm wearing this one, this will hang much more over my body. It's not so tight, it doesn't feel so sort of restrictive and structured, and it doesn't keep its shape as much. It will kind of go wherever I move, and it can be tucked in nicely as well. So viscose jersey for me is one of my favourite jerseys. I much prefer to wear a viscose jersey because I like the way it hangs and drapes over my body. But yeah, both the same pattern, same from different jerseys, and hopefully you can see the difference in them there. Another type of jersey or knit fabric would be wool jersey. So this, I don't have any examples to show you in this because I've never actually sewn from wool jersey. But it is a really great fabric if you want to make something that's quite sort of light and thin, but it has quite a brushed texture to it because there's the wool in it. So that's another type of knit fabric you might want to go for. Another type of knit fabric is ponte or ponte roma. So this is a different kind of knit fabric. It doesn't have a lot of stretch to it. It's a much more stable type of knit. It often feels quite shiny and it has that kind of double knit to it. It's quite weighty, ponte is, so it holds its shape really well. It's really good if you're making quite a close fitting knit dress or a shift dress. It's also good if you have a pattern that needs a zip in it, Ponte was one of the first fabrics that I tried when I first started out in my journey with knit fabrics because it really held its shape and it was really easy to sew with. So here's a quick example of a Ponte make. So this is a Jara sweatshirt by Megan Nielsen, and I've sewn it from a kind of burgundy striped Ponte Roma fabric. So if I give you a close-up of this fabric, you can see what it looks like. So it's pretty much the same on the inside and the outside of the fabric. It's got a kind of knitted texture, I guess. This one does have a little bit of stretch to it, but some Pontes have barely any stretch to them, so they can vary. So yeah, I do really like this Jara, but I would say that it's not very cozy. I don't think Ponte is a cozy knit. It's more slinky, structured knit. I think this Jara is more of a t-shirt weight for me, or like a long sleeve t-shirt weight. It's one that I would wear more in the springtime because it doesn't have any fur or knit back to it or anything like that. So another lovely knit fabric, and one that I really like to work with, is French terry. So French terry can come in lots of different weights. Some French terries are brushed on the back, so they're that little bit more cozy. Some of them just have the knitted sort of texture on the back, so they're more kind of cottony and more lightweight. There are quite a few different types of French terry you can get, but the main sort of feature of French terry is the knitted back. So here's an example of a French terry make that I have here. This is a toaster sweater by Sew House 7, version 2. So this one has the sort of drapey neck to it. So this is quite a lightweight stripy French terry, and you can see on the back that it has that kind of knitted texture. So this one is quite a lightweight French terry. It's quite cottony. It's one that I wear more in the springtime or the summertime, but it was really lovely to work with. So similar to Ponte, I guess, it's quite stable and quite nice and easy to work with. I have another toaster sweater also in a French terry, and that one has a brushed back, so it has the same sort of knitted texture on the back, but the fabric is brushed, so it makes it feel that little bit more sort of warm and cozy. But French terry, I would say, is a really nice sort of lightweight sweatshirt fabric or sweater fabric. You can make a really nice long sleeve top out of it, or you can make a really nice sort of lightweight summer sweatshirt too. So last in my list of knit fabrics, I'm going to include sweatshirt fabric, sweatshirt fabric. So again, there are quite a lot of different types of sweatshirt knit that you can get. You can get a sweater knit, you can get furback sweatshirt you could get just like light brushed sweatshirt fabric as well. Here's an example of something that I made from a sweatshirt fabric. This is a South Bank sweater dress by Nina Lee, and I've made it in a furback sweatshirt fabric. So this one is really, really cozy. Quite stable again. This one does have quite a lot of stretching. You can get sweatshirt fabrics that don't have or have barely any stretch in them, and they are even easier to work with. So it's definitely something to consider. For example, if you're a beginner and you want to make your first sweatshirt. I'll show you the inside of this one. So as I say, this is a furback sweatshirt so it's really, really cozy, really brushed on the inside. This is probably my favourite kind of sweatshirt fabric to wear because it is super cozy, keeps me nice and warm in the winter time. I'm generally quite a cold person, so I do tend to go for sort of brushed knits and furback knits rather than light knits like French terry and Ponte. Again, like with woven fabrics, I'm just going to have a look with you at one of my favourite knit patterns, which is also great for beginners as well. And this is the Cocoa top by Tilly and the Buttons. So this is a really simple knit top. It has a boat neck or a slash neck, 3/4 length sleeves, and it's quite a sort of square boxy style top. You can also make it as a nice A-line dress as well, and if you want to, you can make a nice sort of cowl neck for it. So let's have a look at the fabric suggestions for this pattern then. So Tilly suggests medium weight knit fabric with very little stretch. So something like your sort of double knit fabrics, again, double knit jerseys, Ponte Roma. You could use French terry for this as well, I think, depending on how much stretch your fabric has. But yeah, this is quite a structured knit top, so you want to go for more heavyweight knit fabrics with less stretch. So again, when choosing fabric for your Cocoa top, if that's what you're going to be making, think about how you want the top or the dress to feel when you've made it. So for example, if you're going to be making the dress version of this pattern and you use a stable knit, something with quite a lot of structure, let's say a Ponte de Roma, you're going to get a very defined shape with that kind of jersey. So if you are making the dress has quite an A-line shape to it. So if you're using a structured jersey that holds its shape, like a ponte, you're really going to get that A-line silhouette. I've chosen this one because it is good for beginners, and this is a beginner series. It is one of my favourite patterns too. So those fabrics again have been suggested because Tilly and the Buttons know that those are the types of fabrics that you should be using if you want your Coco dress or top to turn out to look like the pattern image on the front of the pattern envelope. I want to show you an example of a Coco top that I made recently from a fabric that wasn't suggested at all, and just show you the difference in the look and feel of the finished garment. So this is a Coco top that I made back at the end of the summer last year, and rather than using a medium or heavyweight jersey with little stretch, I used a very drapey jersey with quite a lot of sort of drape and fluidity and quite a lot of stretch to it as well. So this wasn't one of the recommended fabrics, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing this if you are a beginner, because it was a little bit more difficult to sew using this fabric. But by using this sort of more drapey viscose jersey, you can see that I've got a much more drapey fluid top, and I'll put in an image here of how this top looks when it's being worn. I wanted to try and use a more drapey jersey for this top just to see how it would turn out. Hopefully you can see the difference there. That in using this sort of more drapey jersey, it's just more fluid, it hangs, it doesn't have that kind of structured boxy shape that the Coco top should have. So I just wanted to include that as a little example of how different fabrics can determine the finished look and feel of your sewn garment. A lot of this can be trial and error, so the more fabrics that you sew with and the more different types of garment that you make, the more you'll get to know the types of fabrics that you like to wear and that you like to sew with. I know that it has taken me a good few years to get to this point where I really know and understand the type of fabrics that I want to wear and what I like to sew with as well. If you're someone who is a little bit unsure or nervous about buying online, often fabric companies will list the composition of the fabric. I know that Minerva do. So they'll list the pictures of the fabric and everything, and then they will say whether it's 100% viscose or say 80% viscose and 20% spandex or something like that. So the more you work with different fabrics, the more you'll get to know these compositions and the more confident you will feel buying fabrics online. Another really good thing that you can do if you are a beginner is to build up a swatch book where you keep little scraps of fabric, staple it into a book, write exactly what the composition of the fabric is, and then if you ever come across a fabric and you're not quite sure how it's going to feel or how it's going to drape or whatever, you can refer to your swatch book and say, oh yeah, that's what a viscose feels like, or that's what a cotton jersey feels like, and that is a really useful thing to do. So I really hope this video has been helpful to you if you are a beginner and you're trying to work out the minefield of how to decide what type of fabric to use for your sewing project. Do save this video as something to come back to if you feel as though it will be helpful in the future. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thanks so much for joining me today everyone, and I'll look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!